back to my channel. As you can see from the title, I am venturing into audiobooks. Yes, all the stuff that I've talked about not really feeling the audiobook world, I'm actually going to give it a try. So technically I've already done that a couple months ago, like a couple videos ago or whatever. I believe I talked about this, but at work we are doing like a team book club and we're reading the book Radical Candor. Now, for those of you who are new, I only read horrors, mysteries, and thrillers. So I read for fun. I feel like give me a second here. I read for fun. I do not read I don't do self-help. I don't read to like learn. Like reading for me is all pure fun. Like some people like dance, some people like the skateboard, some people like video games. I like reading, so it is pure fun for me. So when they were like, oh, we're going to do this book club, I was like, I really want to be there and read with my team. And I hope the washing machine is not like ridiculously loud. But anyway, I was like, I really want to like do this with my team because I love my team at work. But I don't think I'm going to get through this book because it is not something I'm interested in reading. So I was like, you know what? I want to try the audiobook. And it has actually helped me a lot. Now, my biggest thing with audiobooks is one, reading to me is picking up the book, opening it up, reading the pages. Like, that's the fun part of it for me. Like, I love to hold the book. I like to see the words. So when it comes to audiobooks, I'm like, am I truly reading or am I just listening to music? Like, that's kind of the struggle I had with it. But I will say with reading Radical Candor, it actually helped. And I actually am able to follow along pretty well. I think if I was to read this book, I would lose a lot of like points that they were trying to make. But because the author, the narrator, I should say, is good, it keeps me like engaged. So one thing I have learned so far is that if the narrator sucks, it's going to be hard for me. And one thing I didn't know about audiobooks is like if you're listening to an audiobook on one app, the authors and narrators on a different one could be different. So I initially started reading it on Audible. So I did like a free trial and loved the narrator there. When that trial ran out, I switched to Libby, which is what someone told me about, which is basically you getting connected to your library. You can rent ebooks, you can rent audiobooks. I'm guessing, and then you could put like books on hold and all kind of stuff with your local library. So I got that because I'm like, okay, that's free. But the narrator for the book through Libby is actually the author, and I actually cannot stand hearing her talk. I don't believe that these are her words, but the author on Audible, I literally believe that I feel like it's her story because of how she talks. So I will say so far that I already know for me, the narrator is such a big freaking deal. So yes, that is something that I already know that in my mind I'm going to struggle with. I had tested this out a while back as well when I started doing the book for work. And I was trying to do one of Stephen Graham Jones. Y'all know I love him. I was a teenage slasher. I absolutely hate the narrator, and I'm like, I can't listen to this. But then when I go over to Audible, the same book does have the same narrator, but it's also narrated by Stephen Graham Jones. I just don't know how much of what each of them is doing. So I have already peeped that. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a fair chance, and I'm going to see if I can actually read or listen to a book on Audible or audiobooks, like just an audiobook, doesn't matter the platform, and actually remember what the heck that they're reading. So I am basically going to pick a couple of books. I'm starting with this one first. I had actually started reading this one, and I was only on chapter 3. I will say the reason I decided to go with this one first is because these pages, I don't know if it's the print or whatever, but it just looks like there's a ton of words. And I like the premise of the story. So basically, it's about these sisters who are actors who had like this traumatic experience where someone was stalking their mom, who was also an actress, and was trying to kill her. And now the two sisters, one, Cassie has a not so great career. Her sister Allie pretty much kind of took to it and got all the fame. And her sister Allie is missing, and someone on set has been shot during a scene. So basically, Cassie is trying to figure out what happened to her sister. People are suspecting her of doing it. So I'm actually interested in the book, but the way these pages are, it was hard for me to get into, and just really be pulled in by the story. So I was like, you know what, this will be a good book to try out to see if I like it better on audiobook. So right now I am using the platform Audiobooks.com. I did download the app. I want a couple things about the app that I noticed that are the same, I feel like, across the board. As long as you have the app, it breaks it down by chapters. You can see how much time on Audiobooks.com. You can either see how much time you have in the entire book, or you could break it down by the chapter you're in, which I do like. You can start it. All of the Audible and audiobooks have monthly subscriptions, but you do also have to buy the books. So for me, as a person who likes a physical book, I'm like, I'm not gonna buy the book and want to pay for the audio version. Now, some of them do have books that are free, but based off of the books that I searched for, none of those were free. So I feel like for me, Libby will be the route that I would go if I decided to do more audiobooks. However, all books are not going to be available because it's what's pretty much at your local library. So like, I was looking for this book. I can get this book electronically from my library, but I can't get it audible, like audio, from my library. And so I was like, okay, let me check out some of the other platforms. And of course they have a lot more books, and I was able to get this on audiobooks.com. So, and I'll talk about like the price point kind of later for each of them. So I'm listening to it, and I do like the narrator, and I'll have to put her name on the screen, but she's actually interesting. Since I had already read the first 3 chapters of the book, I was like, okay, these are words I'm familiar with, because I was like, well, maybe I'll like, because sometimes there are books that I read and I'm like, oh, this would make a great movie. So I was like, listening it on audiobook would be kind of cool, because you could get that kind of movie feel in the characters. Which is why I started with the Teenage Slasher. That one was not going to work. But listening to this one, I'd already read the first 2 chapters. So I was like, okay, these words are familiar to me, right? It's not like I was hearing them for the first time. Once we got past that, I was still interested in the story, and I was still listening. And I really think that has something to do with the narrator, because I was captivated by her voice. So I was able to do laundry. I was able to clean, which are the pluses. Like, I understand why people are doing the audiobooks, because of course you don't have to stop reading just because you have to do like your laundry, you want to eat, or you have to drive, which are the times I feel like I would use audiobooks. Like, I want to be in the story, but I also have to do other things because I'm an adult. Or if I'm at work, like, I can still listen to my books. I don't think I would do it for every single book, because there are just some books like I'm like, nope, I want to be in the pages. But I do think it's a great thing if you can tandem read. So, and I follow Shaughnessy, and I'll tag her channel. She does a lot of listening to the audiobook when she's doing like other chores, and then reading the book. So that does work, of course, if you have both. But like I said, that could also be pricey. So for me, if I'm reading a book, I would like, and I'm driving and I'm like, okay, I also still want to listen to it. It would definitely have to be something I could get from my library, because I don't want to pay $20 for a book and then pay like another $15 for the audiobook. Like, that just gets too expensive in my opinion. However, so far I am liking this book. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the books or listen to the books. I'm going to do it completely on Audible, or audio. I keep wanting to say Audible. That's the platform. I'm going to keep listening to it audibly through the entire thing, even though I started reading this one in paper. And then I'm going to kind of tell you guys how I feel. Do I feel like I actually know what's going on? Do I feel like I was able to understand the characters and all that kind of stuff? I'll let you know all of that. This is the first book I'm going to read. I have 2 other books. The other one is this one, and it's called The Night in Question by Susan Fletcher. And this one, I've been reading for like 5 months. And it's not that the book is bad. It's just that parts of the book is not that interesting to me. So when they're in the present and they're like talking, so this one is basically about some like rambling, right? This one is about a woman who lives in a retirement community, and 2 tragic events have happened. One, someone fell off the roof, and the other one, someone jumped out the window. So she's like, okay, these incidents are really weird, and she's trying to figure out what really happened. But that part, so those parts are interesting when we're in the present, and like she's working with like one of her other, like one of her friends, her residents at the retirement community, and somebody she kind of like. Those parts are interesting. What's not interesting is when they do the flashbacks to like her childhood and her youth, because they don't really, to me, tie into the story. So I feel like I'm almost reading 2 different books. So I do want to do this one on Audible, even though I've already started it. I want to pick this one up on an audiobook to see if I like it better that way. Because like I said, I've been reading this for 5 months. And it's like, I tried to tell myself I had to read 25 pages a day, y'all. I was getting to 10 pages and like, I cannot. Especially when they, particularly if I was in a chapter that was a flashback chapter. So I will be listening to this one. And the next one that I have, and I'll just kind of like show you guys later, but it's called Such a Bad Influence. I cannot remember the author. That is one I bought on a whim because I was waiting for my food and I did not bring a book with me. So I ran in the bookstore. And that was one that was like supposed to be like the book of the month that they were having like their book club with. And it is a thriller, and she's like, oh, this one is good. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it, because they had extras. And I was reading, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Like, I read like 3 pages while I was waiting, 3 or 4 pages while I was waiting. So that one is fairly fresh, and like I read those 3 or 4 pages like months ago. So because I'm not even sure I like that book, I'm gonna definitely do that one on audio. And I might do like a couple more. I do have like 2 other books that I'm thinking about doing on audio that are not, they are horror, but one is like a book of short stories, which really isn't my jam, and I feel like that one might be hard for me to read. And then one is like a book that someone recommended. I've never read anything by the author, and I think that book's like over 500 pages. So I'm like, these ones would be good candidates for me to listen to. So like I said, there are about 5 books that I'm thinking about doing in this video. But yeah, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on each of them as I get through them, how I felt about them. Do I think they're great? Like how I feel about audiobooks, and as someone who's not a big fan. But like I said, I'm already seeing the perks. My thing is, can these authors keep me interested? So I'm going to be doing that all this week, and I'll tell you about all my experiences. Okay, let me check in and kind of talk about my experience with the audiobook. First of all, well, yeah, and then I'll talk about how I feel about the book in general. I will say, and this is just me personally, I think just my style of like listening and remembering and all of that. I am not feeling like I am getting all the details, because I swear I feel like they're introducing characters, and because I'm not seeing their names on the pages, I'm like, who is this person and why are they here? And then they mention these people, and I'm like, okay, why do I feel like we're just jumping around? And I think it's because I'm just not seeing the words on the page. But it also could be the author. So this is the first like book, like non-educational, because it's only the second book I've done on an audiobook that I'm doing. So this is only the first like reading for pleasure or listening for pleasure book that I've done. So it could just be the book is all over the place. So that I'm going to have to kind of like pay attention to when I do like the next book, because I'm just like, okay, I can't follow the details. I feel like you're jumping around all over the place. I will say for this book, I'm using audiobooks.com. And what I don't like is that in audiobooks, it's called tracks, but the tracks don't match the chapters. So they're like 54 tracks, but they're only like 38 something chapters. So if I was tandem reading, I'm not in this book because I'm fully doing it on the audiobook, except for like what I had read when I started, but I re-listened to that. I started from the beginning. I can't if I was tandem reading, I would literally have to make sure I'm listening for when they change chapters so I could pause it at that point and know where I am in the chapter, because it doesn't just go chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do know on Audible, as well as Libby, which is the free library app that you can connect with your library, they do go chapter by chapter based off of the books, because the book that I'm doing for work, I have listened to them on both platforms, and they go chapter by chapter. So that I don't like, because I can't easily say, okay, boom, I am in chapter 12, and then open the book and try to get to where I am. If I was tandem reading, I would have to like try to figure it out, because I was doing it yesterday. I was like, this does not match up. Or I would have to wait, like I said, until it actually says chapter blah, 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 and then pause it. But it could be in like track 20 when it's really chapter 13 or like 15 or 17 or whatever. They don't match up. Now let's talk about this book. First of all, I really like... Okay, so I can't remember how much I said the last time, but I think in my mind, there are two people who are behind the disappearance of Allie, who is the sister of Cassie, who people kind of feel like did this. She has has had some mental breakdowns because of things that happened to like her mom in the past or whatever like that. Because someone was trying to was stalking her mom and was trying to kill her and her sister and all that kind of stuff, right? But girl, if you're being interviewed and you don't want to answer the questions, stop talking. Like, just walk away. Because if they're filming you and you're actively trying to get away and they continue and try to block you from getting in your car, just get your silly self in the car and drive away. Even if you're sitting there in the car because you can't get past, just don't open your mouth. So you keep saying, like, her inner monologue is, oh, this is a trap, da-da-da-da. But then she keeps talking. I was just like, girl, I can't. I feel like there are parts, like, when I'm listening to this, so that I'm just like, I need y'all to do better. Like, this is really annoying. And there's a lot of repetition in this book. I've never read a book by Lisa Jackson, but she continues to repeat things. And when I'm listening, I'm like, wait a minute. Did I, like, play the wrong, like, did I start it at the wrong? Because I'm just literally hitting pause, play, pause, play. But I'm like, did I accidentally, like, rewind it? Because why do I feel like you're literally saying the same thing over and over again? Which is why this book is probably so daggone long. I find myself zoning out. It is not keeping my attention. So I feel like, and I don't think it's the narrator. I think the narrator is actually keeping me interested. But because of the writing and the fact that she goes, like, this repetitiveness, I kind of lose interest. And, like, some things I'm like, why is this even here? I feel like they're trying to throw in a million different characters and a million different things instead of getting to the meat of figuring out what the heck happened to this girl. So that's how I feel about this book. So I'm going to continue listening. And I think yesterday I got like 5 hours through, and this one is like 15. So we'll see how long it takes me to like listen to it. But the benefits are there. I was able to like drive and go run errands and clean and do all of these things while I was in the shower. All right, so it's been a couple days, but I have been actively listening to my audiobook. I just hadn't checked in. So far I have gotten in 2 audiobooks, more like 1.5, because one of the books I was halfway through. So let me kind of give you my thoughts on audiobooks.com, which is what I use to listen to after she's gone, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on the book. So audiobooks.com works a lot like Audible. You pay for a monthly subscription, and then you also pay for the audiobooks. They do have some that are free in there, and but for the most part you are paying for them. So for me, someone who likes a physical book, this one could get pricey because I'd have to pay for the audiobook and well, I don't have to, but I would end up paying for the physical book and then I would go and buy the audiobook. However, listening to it, you know, as far as the way the app works, I thought it was fine. You do have a sleep mode on the app. It does allow you to kind of see how much time you have left, like in a chapter or overall. You can speed up the book, the narrator, you can slow it down. So all of those features are there. Very, very similar to Audible. The only difference is with audiobooks.com, which I didn't personally like, is that you, like, instead of chapters, it does tracks. And the tracks and the chapters don't match. So this book has like 39 chapters, but there were like 54 tracks. So if you're listening to this book and let's say, for example, you pause it or whatever, you don't necessarily know, oh, I'm in chapter 5. Because the chapters don't match. You could start a new chapter in like the middle of a track. So if you are strictly just listening on the audiobook, then it wouldn't really matter. Like if you're strictly doing the audio version, but if you are, excuse me, what the heck? If you are tandem reading, it gets kind of hard because you're going to have to remember, okay, we just stopped at like chapter 5 in the middle of this track. Let me jump into the book. But when you go back from the book to the audio, you have to figure out where the chapter start, like where you are chapter wise. If you read 5 chapters in the book, that's not necessarily 5 tracks. So that I didn't like about that. So both of them pretty much the same. The apps are fine if you download that. I would say for audiobooks.com, you definitely need the app. For Audible, you can use the web interface and they are very similar. But audiobooks, absolutely not. You need the app. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that, right? So the book. I think this was definitely worth the $1.25. I actually didn't hate the book. The book was just too long for no reason. Like, I like a good story, but this book is almost 400 pages and it could have been like 250, 300. There were a lot of characters, and at first I thought it was me being new to listening to a story for pleasure on audiobook, because like the one I'm listening to for work, I am trying to get key information, but I'm not like deep in the story. Like it helps me. The narrator for the particular one is great, but I'm not listening for like, you know, the detail. Well, I guess it's bad to say, but I'm not listening necessarily for the detail. Like it's not, I'm doing this for fun. But this one, I want the details. I want to know because I want to be immersed in the story. And that was kind of hard to do with the 50 million characters. And at first I thought it was me because I am visual. So I'm like, maybe because I'm not looking at the words on the page, it seems like a lot of people. But I check reviews after I finish a book because I just want to know, like, okay, why they rate it like this? Like, why does this book have this rating? And what do people say to see if we kind of match up? And there were people who also said the same thing. Like, it was long and there were a lot of characters. But I will say I enjoyed it. This gives Lifetime, for sure. I feel like that's how I read books. This gives Lifetime movie. But you know, Lifetime movies wrap up pretty quickly. So in the sense of the twist, it is a twist that I had seen before. And you will actually figure out the twist early on in the story. However, they did another level to that twist where it's like a twist plus one, and then you get to the end and you find out something else. So I did like the story. I just think it took too long to get there. The next book that I read, this book, I feel like I've talked about this before. Y'all, I've been reading this book for like 5 to 6 months. Not gonna lie. This one is about an 87-year-old woman who is in a retirement assisted living community. And there are 2 events that happen. One, someone dies because they like fell off of a building, and then the other one falls out of a window. But Florie's like, wait a second, because people are like, oh, I think they did it on purpose. I think they jumped. And Florie's like, wait a second, I know that person's not going to do that, right? So she's trying to figure out what happened. Now, let me say this. I feel like this book, even though it is a mystery, I feel like this is more of a romance fiction with mystery in the back end. This book is, and I checked the reviews because I'm like, am I crazy? So this one's almost 400 pages, but it is so long-winded. Like there's such great story here, like, but not for a mystery. And I feel like 2/3 of this book was more fiction. More fiction. And the other, wait, is it non-fiction or fiction? No, fiction. Yeah, it was more fiction. And the other third was the mystery. But I'm coming here for the mystery. So You learn a lot about her life, her adventures, her loves, which I'm not gonna lie, I literally would like zone out, and then I would hear something. I was like, oh my gosh, like her loves and things that have happened in her life. Beautiful. However, I was here for the mystery, and that's, I feel, secondary. It's funny. I read the reviews just like not too long ago, and one of the people said that the only reason they continued to read this book was because their friend was like, get to the last 60 pages. And I'm not gonna lie, like the end of this book, I mean, when they just keep layering and layering and layering, and then you get to who did it and why they did it and the mystery. And that's the thing, like you find out something about the person far and the like a lot earlier before we actually find out who did it, which I get, but it was still too long-winded. Like we didn't need to know every single thing about her life. But I liked the book. I really did. I liked the way it ended. But I feel like this is like audiobook. Like if someone was to say, hey, should I read this? I would say, no, I don't think you should try to open this book and read it, but I do think you should listen to it. So it wasn't bad. And I feel like if you're more like the fictional story person and you want that, you're good. But if you came for the mystery, this ain't it. But listening to it was wonderful. So I do think this is worth listening to. It's so funny because the person was like, if I did not get that push from my friend, I don't know how long it would have taken me to finish it. I feel like I would have been reading this for another 6 months, y'all. Because I was literally telling myself, oh, you got to at least do 25 pages a day. I hadn't picked this book up until I started listening to the audiobook. Now, this one I actually did through Spotify. So I didn't even know, I was kind of searching like what other apps were out there for audiobooks, just so I can kind of compare and see what I like the best. And Spotify actually allows or has audiobooks as well, which I was like, okay, that's incredible because, you know, most people love music. Why not add audiobooks in that? So here's the thing. The subscription service to give you audiobooks and music is $11.99 a month, which I don't think is a lot. That's the premium service because the current streaming app that I do use for music is more than that, and I don't get audiobooks. It's just music. So if I was like, oh, I really want to have a program that I can listen to audiobooks, I would definitely choose Spotify because you get both things. So it's not like I would be adding a cost, whereas the other ones I'm adding a cost to get one thing. This one I would be just swapping out services, right? The only other thing though, if you are a person who's strictly audiobooks, I don't think Spotify would work for you because you only get 15 hours a month. So I think this book in total was only like 8 hours, which I don't know, maybe I only had 8 hours left because this one I had already read like the chapters 16 or so, and they were like 30 some chapters. So it was like 8 hours, but I can't remember if that's the total of the book, but you only get 15 hours of audiobook. So if you're someone who is strictly audiobook, like that's what you do the most of, this wouldn't be that beneficial because you would only get the 15 hours. Now, one of the other apps, audiobooks.com and or Audible will be better. And also, if you are strictly audiobooks, you're probably not buying the physical book. So it's not as though, oh, I have to buy the hardback and the physical. The physical and the audio. You would just be buying the audio, which is the same as me just buying a book. But you do have that monthly subscription cost. I think every month you do get with both audiobooks.com and Audible one free credit for your subscription. So they give you a free book a month, technically. With Spotify, I think it's great for people who like to tandem read, or maybe there's just one book you're struggling to get through or two books and it's good to have the audiobook version for that. That works better for me because I like to physically read my books, but like this book I was struggling with, I could listen to it on audiobook, but I didn't necessarily need all of the, 15 hours to get through the book. Or maybe I just want to, because I'm not going to lie, audiobooks serve a purpose. The fact that I could clean my house, I could work out, I could run errands, I could be in the store, I could at work and still be in a book, that's amazing. And for that feature alone, I am more like, I can rock with audiobooks. So for me, I would be doing more tandem reading. So I could read a little bit, but when I can't physically have the book, I can listen to the book. I love that. So 15 hours a month would be enough for me. Especially since, remember, I talked about Libby, or I feel like I talked about Libby. It's the library where you can connect with your local library, and they have audiobooks on there. The one downside about Libby and the books that you have access to, you have access to what's at your library. So for those of you who have a more robust library, you might have more audio options. So for me, these two books were at my library where I could get them in like electronic form or book form, but they didn't have them in audiobook form. So that's the only thing with Libby. You are connected to your local library. So depending on how robust your library is, that's going to, of course, depend on the options you have, which is why I would consider also getting Spotify, because if it's not a book that I can get on Libby and listen to for free at my leisure, tandem read all the way through whatever, I can always have the Spotify 15 hours to listen to that book that maybe I have the book, but I can't get the audiobook on Libby, or whether I want to listen to it all the way through on audio or if I want to tandem. With Spotify, it does break it down by chapters. I absolutely love that. It is chapter for chapter. So if you stop in the middle of chapter 15, you just need to figure out where you stopped in the middle of chapter 15. Or if you stopped at chapter 19, you can pick up at chapter 19, finish chapter 19 through 21, and jump back into the audiobook at 22. I love Spotify because it actually, and I'll put like an image of it, it actually shows you the ones that you have finished. So it marks off the chapters you finished. If you haven't done it, it's not marked off. It also shows you how much time. So I can look at the chapter log and see, okay, I've done 10 minutes of the chapter. I absolutely love that. You can speed it up. You can slow it down. You can put it on a timer, and it does have a feature where you can take end of chapter. So if you know, okay, I'm dozing off, or you know, I need to get up and maybe I can't be listening to the music because I have something to do, you can have it, or not the music, but the book, you can have it stop at the end of the chapter as like a cue. Okay, I need to do what I need to do, or you knew you were going to fall asleep by the time you got to the end of the chapter. So that's great. If you miss a space, like I said, it's easier to find when you're tandem reading. So, and the app is just like pleasing aesthetically. I also think I don't know why you would want to do this, but you can actually rearrange the chapters. I don't know why you would want to read the book out of order, but that was also an option. So I really do love Spotify, and I think to add to what I am, or like what I can do with Libby, I would love Spotify because it gives me access to more books, but I am not paying extra for the book. Like the books are free because it's included in that streaming service, which makes sense why you only get a certain amount of hours, because you're not like just getting like unlimited books. But it also gives me the music. So like I said, this one is actually cheaper, even with the audiobooks, than the current streaming service I have. So if I get to a place where I feel like, hey, I really, really do want to use this more, especially for travel, I would swap out my streaming services, because I'm actually going to save a little bit of money, and then I'll get more because I'm getting books. They do have like an audiobooks version only, which is like $9.99, but I still think, if my memory serves me correct, and I'll try to like put like yes or no here, but I think you still only get 15 hours. So for me, paying $10 a month for just 15 hours when I can use Libby, or just go to premium where I could get music as well, that makes more sense. So these are the two I've already completed on audiobook. Because I love Spotify so much, I am going to jump into this one, Such a Bad Influence by Olivia Muenter. This one I started and read like a few pages, but it didn't grab me. So I'm like, okay, let's do this one on audiobook. I really impulse this one. It is signed though. So yeah, I got it because it was a part of like the book club, but I don't know if maybe just the beginning is just not pulling me in. But anyway, I was like, this is a good one to do on audiobook. I purchased the book, but it did not capture me in the beginning, so I'm going to listen to it. And I'm not going to lie, I often say when I'm reading some books, I'm like, dang, this would be a good, like, movie. So this gives me kind of that movie vibe, and you have, like, the tone and the suspense, and it's all the build-up. So it gives me kind of that movie vibe. I create the picture, but I'm hearing the words and that voice of the narrator that makes the book so great. Which the narrator does matter. But yeah, so this is the next one, and then I'll check back in and tell you guys how I like this one or whatever. So yeah, I'll see you in a few hours. Not a few hours. It might be like a day or two, but I'll check it with y'all. I'm trying to figure out if my lens. I think my lens is foggy. Hold on. Big difference. Okay, I have like lotion all over my lens. So y'all, I was going to like enjoy the whole audiobook situation and take a walk like because I'm going to like this vendor market thing. Y'all, it is 81 degrees outside. And it's February and it is 81 degrees outside and I am not okay with that. So I'm not going to be walking right now. I think I am going to take a walk, but I was like, oh, this would be so great. It's not that far from my house. It's like a 20-minute walk, 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. I can get some reading in. I'm going to still get my reading in via the car. But yeah, but that's just every time I think about the fact that I can constantly stay in a book. And yes, I am still reading. And I think that was my biggest thing, thinking that because I wasn't sitting down, I wasn't reading. But quite honestly, a lot of times I'm in my car, there's nothing playing because I don't want to listen to music. Why not listen to a book? Or when I'm doing a walk or a workout that is driving me crazy. Like I've even started listening to an audiobook while I run, which running for me, literally, I only do it for a flex to say, yeah, I run. Like health benefits be damned. I would prefer to do like other types of workouts. But running, you know, having the music there helps, but literally hearing a book and running, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is so beneficial and it makes the running even better. So I, score 1 for audiobooks. I'm still gonna be reading my paper books. Like I love my paper books, but this all around always being able to read and not have to be out of it is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna go to the market. I have a physical book with me. The one I brought is All the Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. That's a physical book I'm reading, but the audiobook that I'm listening to is Such a Bad Influence. And I'm not gonna lie, this book is actually better than I thought it was gonna be. It's just about the internet and how people just be using their family for clout. This poor child been a cash cow since she was little. Basically, that's what it's about. And like, she's missing. So it's this mother and 2 daughters. One daughter has like flat out, I don't want to be on the internet. Like that's not my life. And the other daughter, when they started, was very, very young. So of course she basically didn't have a say. Which literally shows the manipulation of a parent, because yeah, you can say, hey Susie, do you want to be on the internet and do a video? And of course if you're 5, you're gonna say yes. But with the older daughter, because the younger daughter and the older daughter are 10 years apart, she was older, so she was already a teen, able to say, I don't like this. But it did cause like a rift. I'm pretty sure something else major has happened because they keep hinting to it, but I'm not there yet. But the younger daughter, who's now 18, is missing, and she's like this internet sensation. The mom is being weird, and the daughter's like, literally, this lady is still getting her nails done and acting like, oh, this is normal. Like the mom literally doesn't tell her that her sister is missing. She finds out from the sister's boyfriend 6 days after the sister has been missing, and they are close, but the older sister is going through something, so she hadn't been checking in as much. So that's where I'm in now in the story. I honestly feel like the mama's behind the disappearance. I'm not even gonna lie. That's what I feel. It's giving mama jealous, because the mom is also an influencer. But yeah, and how they actually got into influencing, which they talk about it throughout the book, but literally hearing, because like what I like about this book and what I like about hearing it is there are like 5 or 6 different narrators, because this book is heavy into like social media. So like they'll have like Reddits and like people reading comment sections and like interviews and podcasts, but they're different not authors, but narrators. So you get like a different voice, and I really do like that because it makes it interesting. So I'm at the part where this podcast, I don't know if it's a podcast or a TV show, but anyway, it's called Darker, and they are breaking down the family and how they actually got into the business. And when you hear it played out, it's like, this mama ain't shit, like at all. But it's so crazy because it's actually what people do. And yeah, so I'm definitely enjoying it. This is like psychological thriller, thriller. I think it actually does fall in the mystery drama too, probably because like disappearance, where is she, and then like just regular thriller. But yeah, definitely enjoying it, so I'll check in later. I had to pop in because this book is getting spicy. Like, I had to pause it because this is why I say I feel like audiobooks would give me that as if I was watching this on a TV screen. And I'm like, that's like oils. I just got out the shower. But anyway, okay, so I don't know if you read this book and didn't listen to it on audiobook. I would say listen to it on audiobook because this thing is so funny. So earlier, I think I was at the part where at least I talked about how they had podcasts in it. And this is part 2. And the mama decided to not listen to the cops or whatever. And she's doing the podcast, right? But one of the two, so there are two people, and one of them is non-binary. So first of all, the mama tried to come in and act like, oh, she's fans of their show. And she goes, you girl, da da da. And the girl Kara was like, hold up. Oh, this is non-binary. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I should have remembered, da da da. Trying to play it up like she likes him, right? But August ain't really been liking her. And if you listen to like the first one, she was like, why is like his mom exploiting his daughter, whatever, da da da. And so she started popping off about a bunch of stuff. And then the mama getting all flustered and mad and try to pop back. And then the mama hit them with the because you're so woke and you people. And I said, oh my God. And so now August about to pull up. I had to stop because I just want to tell y'all, like, this is entertaining. So you know what? I can do the audiobooks. Like, I can do them, especially if it's going to be something like this. Like, this whole character narrator setup is so freaking good because, like I said before, they're not just one person doing different voices. They're like actual different people. So I'm like fully visualizing this thing. 10 out of 10. I do think I would have enjoyed reading this one. I think like all books, sometimes they just start out slow and you just like, there's a lot of slowness in the beginning. But I would have enjoyed reading this one on paper too. So this isn't something I'm like, audiobook? No, I would have enjoyed reading this. But y'all, I just had to check in because I had to clutch my towel. But back to the book. All right, so it's like a few days later, and I actually forgot that I never finished up talking about my thoughts on such a bad influence using audiobook. So let's talk about the book. The last time I checked in, I think I was talking about them going back and forth like in the interview. That was really good. I was saying I didn't like the mom because I thought she was trash, and after the interview, some things came to light and I started to feel bad for her. And then I did it again. And I was like, okay, I was right the first time about the mom. So here's the thing with this book. After that, the book took a lull. It was a lull, and all of this stuff, all of these like conversations are happening. And then we get to, I guess, quote unquote, like the twist, the thing that's supposed to make you gasp. Well, that happened, but it was literally probably still a quarter of the book left, maybe even more, 20% of the book left when this occurred. So I was just like, okay, what's left? Then the book literally just dips and it's more talking and more of a lull. And then finally we get, I guess, the second twist. And though it was like, okay, wow, what's going to happen? And we see, what's Big Sister's name? We see Hazel, go and jump into action trying to figure all this out. We found all this kind of stuff out that's kind of happened in between, backstory, whatever. And even though it's like, dang, that's not cool, still not super exciting for the psychological thrill we're here for. And we find this thing out, and it's like we're at the end of the book. Then we get to the epilogue. I think it was the epilogue, right? Oh, or the 2 years later. And all this stuff is revealed. And while I will say the end of the book did end on like a, oh wow moment, it wasn't worth all the words in between. So if you're new here, one of the things, I don't like to read reviews before I go into the book. I typically read them after. And a lot of people said that, like, there was just so much, like, so much unnecessary words. And I listened to it. There was literally a point in the book where I think I have been listening for like an hour or more and had absolutely, like, you could hear the things being said, but it was like, wait a minute, what did I just listen to? Like, who are we talking about? Who is this new person? And while I did like listening this on audio to this on audiobook, I don't think it would have taken me like months like that other book to get through this because the lulls were so long. I didn't really, it didn't give what I feel like it was trying to maybe give. So, okay to listen to if you could get it for free from your library. I don't necessarily know I would read this. This was not thrilling. And even the things that sounded thrilling, like the twisty things, because of so many different lulls that you had to go through to get to them, it just wasn't worth it. Now, how do I feel about audiobooks as a whole? Well, let's just say audiobooks are definitely a part of my everyday read. Being able to like run errands, go to the grocery store, go get your car cleaned, being able to clean the house, work out, all of those things while still reading work, like sitting at work. Because a lot of times I sit at my desk, I'm listening to music. In your car, listening to music. And the times where I'm not, it's just the silence and I could be reading. So I definitely see why people incorporate it. I have been tandem reading now. Some of my books, I typically read about 3 books at a time. So like one book I'll have where I'm going back and forth between listening to it and reading. And it's been wonderful. So I absolutely do love it. I am not going to give up physical books. I love my books. Like sometimes I just want to have that book, but the fact that I can still read when I'm doing other things, I absolutely love. So yes, I do understand audiobooks. It is a thing that I do regularly now. And my favorite tools to listen are definitely Libby and definitely Spotify. One, because Libby is completely free. There's another app called Hoopla, which I feel like is pretty much like Libby. I didn't download it because based off of what I know, it's like Libby where you connect to your library. So I can already do that through Libby, completely free. Now, you may not be able to get older books. I find like that's a little harder. I do need to do some investigating, like, can I request this from my library and may get it from somewhere else, or I get like the ability to borrow it from another library through there. But most, like the newer books, absolutely they have, and they typically have a good many copies of them. But like if you want older books, Spotify is great for that. And because I do it with tandem reading and I'm not just fully reading, then the amount of hours that I get with Spotify is cool. And you also have the ability to like buy a packet of hours that you can just roll over if you need to. So yes, I love the audiobooks too. I have incorporated them. Let me know your thoughts if you guys read audiobooks. My name is Sho'Shanna. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're new here, thanks for coming. Stick around, join the family. For those of you who keep coming back, thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one.